All right. Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for watching. Thank you for to the audience for being here, and I'd like to thank everyone currently watching the hearings on YouTube. And we're now in the hearing of the Secretary of Treasury, Harry Peters, Republican from Michigan. He was nominated by President-elect David Long. This is the first season of USA Political Simulator, and we are going to be asking questions. The Senate will ask questions to the Secretary of Treasury. Apologies for that interruption, but we will be asking questions and he will answer to us. That's how a hearing goes, and since there have not been any committees started yet, we'll have the majority leader, which is me. I will be asking questions first, and then I will leave it to the rest of the senators to ask their own questions to the Secretary of Treasury. That is how a hearing works. All right. I will be brief in my questions. I will let other senators go as well. But my question is, I have been discussing with the Secretary of Treasury for some time about how he will make the rich pay through increasing the corporate and income taxes of the rich. And I asked him, and we were discussing how Amazon pays 0% in taxes, and why that is that so? We figured out that it was because. Actually, Mr. Peters, please explain to us again, why does Amazon pay 0% in taxes?
Well, they may be evading our taxes by basing, technically, quote unquote, basing their corporation in another country like Liechtenstein or Iberia, which they have low corporate taxes, which it is great to make monopolies so they don't have to pay our taxes, which is rightfully as outrageous as they think it is.
Okay, so how do you plan to fix this situation? How will you make sure companies pay their fair share?
Well, we are going to meet with these CEOs. I'm going to meet with these CEOs. We're going to make sure in that meeting that they agree to pay their fair share of the 21% corporate taxes.
What happens if they don't? What happens if they say, "Oh, sure, we'll do X, Y, and Z," and it's going to be they'll be really vague, as corporations, I would presume, often are when discussing issues with government officials. And then what happens if they don't pay their fair share if they say that they do to the government, to the Secretary of Treasury?
If they do, if they just tell a lie, which is basically just saying, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll pay the taxes, if they don't, we're gonna have to sue them. It's very simple. Sue them.
Yeah,
Sue them and get the 21%.
Isn't that out of your jurisdiction as Secretary of Treasury? Are you able to sue these corporations as Secretary of Treasury? Is that out of your
I cannot sue. I cannot sue corporations. That is out of my jurisdiction. But the Attorney General's there. The Attorney General do that. If the Attorney General decides to. If he doesn't decide to, then we'll have to go with another plan to get these corporations to pay taxes.
What is that other plan?
So far that is still being I have not thought of it yet, but I'm thinking of it. I'm still thinking of that plan. That plan C.
All right. Let's see. I will go with Senator George Nixon since he came first. I'll allow him to ask the first question of senators.
Okay, so the IRS has faced significant problems over the past several years in providing quality taxpayer service and protecting taxpayer information from cyber criminals. What action do you think the agency needs to take in increase tax quality taxpayer services and prevent cyber criminals from accessing taxpayer information and engaging in stolen identity refund fraud?
What we are going to do for the cybersecurity threat is we're going to develop a government. Hopefully, we can get a government software that protects government agencies from cyber criminals, whether it be a group, a terrorist group, or a country like Russia, because Russia likes to attack us. To prevent them from getting into our organizations, not just the IRS. I'm talking about the FBI and the CIA. And number two, to make the tax quality um more transparent, because it is not that transparent in my opinion. This was proposed by the Obama and Reagan administration. Return-free filing is the only way to make it more transparent. We do the taxes for the American people. The corporations that are just giving us money and saying, hey, make the American people do it and we'll give you money, which is absolutely wrong. So, yeah.
I'd like to ask, how exactly can you guarantee that government servers are safe from hackers?
Um, I cannot guarantee that right now, but when this software is developed and tested, in theory, yes, hopefully it should prevent cyber criminals. And if it becomes outdated, it will hopefully, under this bill that will create this software, say it is mandatory as soon as it gets outdated to be updated by a new team of coders.
Thank you for that answer. Senator Jamal Jones, do you have any questions for
Yes, I
him?
do.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. So, Treasury Secretary nominee, it's good to have you here. My first question is this: would you continue on the process to uh, transition our banknotes, more the $20 bill, to replace Andrew Jackson with Harriet Tubman?
Um, Replacing the $20 bill with from Andrew Jackson to Harriet Tubman.
Yes.
Um, I would agree with that, and I'm actually going. I'm going to put why. We've had a racist past. Andrew Jackson. A lot of people might disagree, or people might agree with me, but I think Andrew Jackson was a bad president. He was bad, and Harriet Tubman led the Underground Railroad to lead slaves to escape,
Okay,
which
I'm
is
going to
heroic and
Mr.
brave.
Peters. Mr. Peters, I'm going to stop right there. Thank you for answering my question. You did not have to go any further because your jurisdiction as Treasury Secretary is to, of course, change. Is to involve money, not really with anything else that you had inside it. So my next question is this: um, as a Secretary of Treasury, if confirmed, what would you do in your first 100 days?
Uh, Within the first 100 days, the budget will be number one, definitely. Um, Number two, will be getting that software thing going, and number three, getting that return free filing bill going.
All right, more about the return free filing bill. how are you going to play a part within implementing it to the American people? I know that return free filing is actually pretty popular with the American population. But my question is, how would you implement it once you are given the job of Treasury Secretary?
Well, we're going to work with. I'm going to work with Congress to get the bill going.
Mm.
Um, and we're going to hand that to the IRS and tell the IRS to adequately do that job that they're going to be given by telling, doing all the calculations and all the filing, and then giving to the American citizen and American people and say, here's how much you owe, and they just pay us.
Mm. Okay. About the IRS, which you did state, um, there has been a long history in which at least members within the right of the Republican Party have stated their dislike for the IRS, even though they have been quite underfunded or defunded by the government multiple times, which resulted within the rich being sidelined and not really having that much security by the IRS because they don't have the resources to actually put them in check once they have tax evasions. So my question is to you: what would you do as Treasury Secretary to ensure that the IRS can focus more on ensuring that everybody pays their taxes than just poor people, which that's the only part that they really would have jurisdiction over because of their funding?
Well, we're going to have to give them more funding, the adequate funding to stop tax evasion, and as Senate Majority Leader did, Senator Walsh did say um, that how am I going to make sure that the rich pay their fair share?
Oh, okay.
The, so yeah, we have to fund the IRS. I know my party doesn't really want to do that because they're the party of the rich per se, but I am a very bipartisan I very bipartisan politician who wants to work with both sides and not what the party wants, but what the American people need. And that be giving the IRS more money to make sure the rich pay their fair share.
Okay. My last question here is: do you think tax cuts, not particular tax cuts, but tax cuts in general, which normally go to the top 1%, do you think that that tax cuts would be a would last a better effect on the economy or a worse effect on the economy, just to look back to over 30 years?
Tax cuts will
Mm,
be good for the economy and the country and for the American people if balanced.
okay. Next, okay, well, just to add on to that question, when you say tax cuts, would you say tax cuts um from Ronald Reagan, the Bushes? Would you say tax cuts from those people
Hmm.
that brings a greater effect on the country's economy?
Um, I don't think the rich should be getting the tax cuts, which is what Ronald Reagan and I believe Bush were going for. No,
So
we're not
that's an
going for that.
is that a no?
No.
Okay, well, thank you. I yield my time.
All right. I'd like to go back to asking a question about the tax evasion issue. So, how will increasing funds for the IRS? How will that improve? How will that improve our mechanism to prevent wealthy companies from implementing tax sort of from implementing bases outside of the U.S. and tax havens like Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, as you mentioned, and Ireland? How will the IRS prevent that from happening? And in addition, uh, how will you make sure companies pay their fair share. I understand that your answer was beefing up the IRS, but what other ways would you make sure companies pay their fair share in taxes? Also, why would allowing paying companies to pay, quote unquote, pay their fair share in Texas, why is that a good strategy? And how would that benefit Americans while at the same time not really deterring companies from leaving the country?
Um, to repeat the questions.
Well, my first question is, how will increasing funds in the IRS benefit our how will that increasing benefit our tax evasion prevention strategy? And how will increasing taxes on companies be beneficial to the American economy, seeing that increasing taxes on companies may deter them from uh, coming to our shores or maybe even doing business in our country?
Um, First up, beefing up the IRS. The other ways, we can't really stop corporations from moving over to Ireland um and Liberia and just shutting the gates because that would be authoritarian or um like stopping companies from doing whatever they want. That is not a good idea, or is it a moral idea? The only way that is moral and good is beefing up the IRS to tell the rich, hey, you're not paying your taxes, please pay your taxes. Um, the second, uh, the answer to your second question is, I believe there should be a separate subtax. What do I mean by that? A separate subtax for these big mega companies that get a higher corporate tax rate. It's not going to affect the actual corporate tax rate. We're going to make a separate one, a sub corporate tax for the mega corporations to pay on top of the actual corporate tax rate.
Okay, so I'll ask another question about tariffs. Until recently, I have never heard so much discussion about raising tariffs. I understand and support the desire to improve U.S. trade, but higher tariffs are higher taxes. If we raise tariffs, we have to understand we are taxing American families. With that in mind, in what situations do you think it is appropriate to raise tariffs?
No, tariffs are never a good idea. Even if we're trying to fight our enemies, tariffs are never the option because, as you said, it hurts American citizens. And as shown in the Trump administration in the 2018, the start of the U.S.-China trade war in 2018, American farmers got hit pretty hard. So tariffs, we can't raise tariffs. We can't do tariffs. They are a very bad thing to do.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Any other people have questions?
Well, I'd like to ask Mr. Peters, why? So you say that you support, of course, that you think that tariffs are bad. Why? Oh, what will you do with the the recent Chinese-Indian border conflict? So, uh, how will you pressure China on that on? Of course, it's a more. I believe the United States has a broad interest of keeping the human rights of other citizens into account, a globalist interest. So, how will you make sure? How will you ensure that interest while at the same time reducing tariffs? And how will you make sure people are held accountable for their actions on the humanitarian front from Xinjiang to attacking our allies in India?
Um, obviously, tariffs, I said, are not a good idea. Um, I think instead of the no, sanctions, sanctions are not a good idea. Let's talk about sanctions because that's going to be brought up too. If we sanction China, that is the worst idea you can do. That is worse than terrorists because they're going to sanction us back, and that's just going to escalate the trade war, escalate the deficits, escalate everything. Um, which is not what we want. Definitely not what we want. We don't want escalation because we whatever just happened with India was really bad. Instead, not really my jurisdiction, but I hope the United States could try to find, could try to, have a little bit on India and trying to go into a little bit of a talk over some tea or whatever they drink to, resolve the conflict. I don't think any economic measures should be taken that will just escalate things and make them worse and hurt us.
Uh, Also, I'd like to ask: do you think tariffs protect American jobs, and does that necessarily conflict with the president-elect's agenda of restraint and tariffs on China? I mean, the president has stated that he supported tariffs on China. Do you think that conflicts with his the agenda of your own administration?
Um, I don't agree with increasing tariffs. Um, this may sound as flip flop on the surface, but this is not a flip flop. We shouldn't be increasing tariffs. Definitely not where we want to go. Um, maybe cutting tariffs or keeping the tariffs where they are. That that's good. That's good, but not raising them. It's not. This was not a flip flop. It's just stating the facts and what I want.
Mr.
All right.
Peters.
Yeah, I yield my time to Mr. Jones. Senator Jones, please feel free to ask your question.
I just have a side comment. You can concur with your personal ideas with the president, but your job is to, of course, handle over any sort of orders that the president brings to you, no matter what your personal ideas are. So um, when it comes to the subject on tariffs, even when my fellow senator had actually the question when it was about international sanctions, that's more within negotiation with the State Department than with the Treasury. But besides that, that's it. I get my gun.
Uh,
If I may.
Senator.
Oh, never mind.
I was just gonna say Senator Rapid came like 2 minutes ago.
Senator
Yeah.
Vapid, feel free to ask any questions that you have. Since you came
So
in.
yeah, so I came in late. This is for the position of Secretary of the Treasury. Am I right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Since also I came late, this might have been asked already. But what I'd like to ask you is, President-elect Long has stated that they want to, during his campaign, stated that he wanted a wealth redistribution. Well, not wealth redistribution, but a wealth cap, and that he was going to heavily tax the super rich. So, since you're going to be Treasury Secretary and probably in charge of a lot of those policies being put into action, how do you think you might go about doing the those policies, or if you even agree with them at all?
As I said, the I don't necessarily agree with the wealth tax, but we're going to put um could call a substitution to it, increase taxes on billionaires, the mega rich, because three top of three rich billionaires control, I believe, a third of our money, which is absolutely wrong. We should be taxing more, and part of that would be that sub corporate tax I was talking about for the mega rich companies on top of the normal corporate tax rate, so they'd be paying two separate taxes.
Um, all right, so I guess another question would be corporate bailouts during the pandemic, and well, I guess that isn't a thing in this RP, but I guess during, say, the Great Recession of 2008, we saw a lot of companies starting to fail. Therefore, therefore they were being paid lots of money, but a lot of that money we saw was being given towards corporate bonuses and stock owner payouts rather than actually going down towards the workers. So if the country is in a situation where we will need to give corporate bailouts, how are we going to make sure that that bailout money is used in productive ways?
I'm going to answer your question in just a moment. I'm actually just going to say one thing. A lot of people back in the '08 crisis were shouting like the banks failed. Folks, we all know if those banks failed, the American economy, in fact, the global economy, would have been in a Great Depression. Those banks are really important, even if you don't like it, or if you do. Those banks were important, and if they failed, things would have got 200 times worse. Now, answering your question, this is probably one of the most unpopular things with my party because I'm a Republican. We gotta somehow regulate these bailouts so they're used in productive means and helping the workers, um, giving them the money, keeping these companies afloat.
All right. I guess I yield my time.
May I
Anyone
ask
else
a
who wants to ask a question?
question? I'd like to ask a question. Mr. Nixon, since I've been speaking a lot, Senator Nixon, Senator Jones, do you have anything else to add?
Nothing for me.
Wait a second, let me find my question.
All right. We'll wait.
I'm going to take another water break. I'm
Right. All right. Take a brief. Yes. Free to take a break, and then Senator Nixon will ask his question. Yes.
Hearings are very stressful and they make you lose water because you sweat.
Okay, I have found my question. The past several years, have. Oh, wait. Wrong question. Let me find it again. Sorry.
Hey.
I do not have a question now. Sorry.
All right. I'll ask my question. So, uh, Mr. Peters, Secretary of Treasury nominee Peters, are you familiar that there are other nations which went around sort of bailing out the big banks. Like, for example, the nation of Iceland, which instead of bailing out its large banks, it increased funding and the usage of tourism as a dependency for revenue. Although there may be other, do you think there are other ways to protect our economy aside from bailing out big businesses, big banks? Not exactly big businesses, but still big banks.
Um, I'm actually going to go back to what I said previously. Look, if President Bush did not make the consequential decision of bailing out those big banks, we would have been in a much, and I cannot express much, how better of a position we would have been in if those banks that went down the tubes. Um, those bailouts were important. And if something were to happen again, um, I don't think there's any other way. Boosting Iceland is not the United States, and the United States isn't Iceland. Iceland has, um, I don't know how many people, a couple 100,000. Um, haven't checked the population of Iceland in a very long time, but the United States has almost 340 million people. Whatever Iceland does, you can't really do it because we're a much bigger country with a lot more people and also a different kind of a different style economy.
That's a fair point. Does anyone else have any questions, or do any other senators have questions?
I have a question actually.
Feel free.
So, on the other topic of, I guess, alternatives to corporate bailouts, um, I've seen other countries, such as say Norway, Sweden, in Scandinavia. Um, they try to prevent situations where they need to bail out large corporations, and we also saw this in Japan following World War II with Mitsubishi conglomeration, is that they broke up large so-called too big to fail companies, so that if in our free market capitalist society it turns out somebody doesn't want to buy the products of one certain company, and I guess they go under, that it wouldn't have huge repercussions on populations, because the business would not be so big that it would like be vital to the country's like survival in order to be to kind of, yeah, so that we wouldn't have to bail out companies in order to save our economy or to save our employment, um, and to let a free market society kind of continue to thrive. What is your opinion on, for example, breaking up huge companies such as like Amazon, which
So,
are too big to fail?
are you suggesting breaking a company into, let's say, two? Um, are they like the same company, or are they two different companies under um
I'm talking about, say, big multi, like for example, if we had another Great Depression, we would theoretically have to bail out, say, Amazon. I believe they're the biggest visible conglomerate, at least in the United States, that is involved in multiple industries. So they are what would be called a too big to fail company. Like if Amazon like completely went bankrupt, then like millions of people would be unemployed. But I'm talking about breaking up, maybe like separating, I don't know, the streaming service from the music service, from the library component, from the delivery component, from the computing component, things like that, so that all these different industries that were once united under a single massive conglomerate are now more free, to be able to pursue their own path, so that maybe if one component goes under, it wouldn't affect the other unrelated industries that is involved in the company.
Hold on a second. How's the timer? This is not a role play. I have to do something.
I motion that we take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
All right, I've accepted.
Sounds good.
I object.
I'm gonna ask a question after the person who's.
Well, we'll be back at 6:24 is when the hearing will start again. So recess. So everyone can unmute if you want to. You just
Cue the elevator music.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I'll get
now
some elevator music on my phone. I need to
Oh
go.
my God,
I'm creating the committees right
Who's going to be the next?
Now we're
Get
still
Rebel
being
Bottom
recorded,
here,
so
let's
everything that you say in here is going to be on the YouTube video, but it's just a 5-minute.
Yo, hello YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you've been recording this the whole time?
Yep.
Ah. Okay. Who's the
We're
next?
having an ad, and then we'll have.
Eating a falafel wrap with sweet potato fries. Thanks.
Wait, what is this?
It's an ad. I'm trying to play elevator music.
Oh, I thought ads don't happen on Rhythm.
It's not Rhythmbot.
Oh yeah, someone put in Rhythmbot then. I'm playing it on YouTube. Here, someone put in Rhythmbot and do elevator music.
Who's going to be?
Yeah, I can do it. I can do that.
Oh wait, I'm checking Discord on the call. But someone needs to do that. Yeah, that's what we do. And then
I can do that.
Who's the next nominee we're going to question?
I think we all are doing vice. No, House has to do vice. The House has to do vice president.
House Vice President, and then I think we'll do the Secretary of State next. For the Secretary of State,
Marty's gonna be.
So that's Melanie Davies, right?
yeah, Marty. Yes. So you guys may ask, send your questions to me, and I think I'll ask them. It'll be because it's really inconvenient at the time for the hearing. So actually, I'll have a Foreign Affairs committee chair. They'll ask the questions to Marty Davies. I'll have it. Hang on a second. I'll send the committee tomorrow.
So we won't be able to all ask questions
To the new
individually?
people on the call, you can unmute for now because we're in recess. So.
Yeah, you may unmute. Oh yeah, for the next hearing, I'll have one person ask all of our questions, and we'll write those questions to that one person.
Who's playing the
We'll
really
have Jamal Jones. Senator
Just
Jones
turn on
will
your
be
user
in
volume. Turn on
the
the user volume. I can disconnect it.
Senator Jones will be in the Foreign Affairs Committee. So you guys, let's all ask our questions to him, and then Jamal Jones, you will be sending the questions to you'll be asking the questions in person to the Secretary of State nominee.
So
Davies.
what you want me to do is to basically collect the questions that you have, ask the questions
Yes.
to the nominee. Okay.
Correct. Exactly. Great. All right. So let's continue the hearing. Actually, I have assigned a Ways and Means chair, Vapid Ladybug. You are the Ways and Means chair, so I will be quiet now because I do not control the hearing anymore. It's now Vapid Ladybug who will control the hearing, since I allowed her to be
It's him. Stop.
chair of the Ways and Means
Just
Committee.
because of the. Yeah, anyways, I'm just. And Vapid left the person that you gave control of the committee to. I just left.
All right. Oops. Okay. So now it's Jamal Jones.
also-
Now. He controls it.
Sorry,
Vapid
I'm
Ladybug is
back. Sorry, my internet was just crapping out.
Okay. So now, since you are the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, you will ask the questions to nominee Harry Peters, and you will control the hearing. Basically,
All right.
You can.
Okay.
You
Yes.
can. You're the first one to ask questions, and the order is first Vapid Ladybug, and the second person to ask questions is Jamal
And then
Jones,
you need
and then
another
George.
minute.
Go
Alright.
ahead.
No, we're not
And
starting
this
it.
is for-
We still have till 2024.
This is for Secretary of State.
This
This is the Ways and Means Committee.
Oh,
Yes,
it's-
Secretary of Treasury.
It's still Secretary of Treasury. Okay.
I would like to ask the president-elect to send me his foreign his foreign policy To the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Senate now, or whenever you have time.
Yeah.
Dave,
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Email. Send. Oh no, not
What do
email.
y'all?
Send a
Okay, wait. What y'all
Discord
want from
message.
me?
send me your foreign policy.
Like
Like
a
when you, yeah,
like
Secretary
what
of State.
I want. What?
yes. Send that to
My foreign
me. So
policy
I,
goals.
yes, your foreign policy goals.
Do
Yes.
you? When do you need this?
Um, whenever I start questioning Marty.
You're doing that
Also, yeah,
tonight?
you guys
Oh
can
well, okay.
schedule a
It's
hearing.
24, so everyone who's not part of the hearing needs to mute. Then we'll restart. So
Yes, correct.
Okay.
All right. Does anyone else want to ask? Do any other senators want to ask a question to the Secretary of Treasury nominee? Should ask them.
I guess so. I'll do it.
Go
So
ahead.
the United States may overly rely on the income tax. A fair amount of study on the topic has suggested that a tax on saving investments increase the cost to capital, thus in turn decreasing capital formation, wage growth, and GDP growth. Would either consumption or land value be a more efficient tax base as compared with income? Could a shift to such a tax base be done in an approximately disputedly neutral fashion?
Could you rephrase the question, please?
So, could a shift to such a could a shift in a tax base be done in an approximately distributionally neutral fashion? Or I could write it in the chat.
Please write in the chat.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
just
Which chat?
send a chat.
All right then. Chat.
Please, actually, it would be preferable if you made it visible to the public. So you should type it in your office chat, since those are accessible to the public.
But you have three chats. Office chats.
Okay, I wrote it in the PPT thingy.
Efficient taxation. The United States may overly rely on the income tax. Fair fair amount of study on the topic has suggested that a tax on savings/investment costs increases the costs to capital, thus in turn decreasing capital formation, wage growth, and GDP growth. Would either consumption or land value be more efficient tax base as compared with income? Could a shift to such a tax base be done in in, a, in approximately distributely neutral fashion? Okay. Um, the first question, um, the um land value or consumption tax. Um, I do not believe that would be a more efficient base as compared with income. I believe the income tax um is actually more efficient. Although um the savings investment and all that other stuff mentioned will be hit. I don't believe a land or consumption tax would be much better. The land value tax would tax land owned, which is a property like a house, and a consumption tax would be a tax on food. I think they're equally they have the equal amount of being bad, but I believe the income tax is better. Second, um, as I already said, no, I don't think um shift to tax base could be done in a neutral fashion. If that answers your question.
Does thank you.
Pleasure.
Does any uh does any senator have questions? Or yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask a specific question about the the sanction issue. Are you aware? So, do you support sanctioning specific officials who are involved in actions which are against human rights, like, for example, the Xinjiang re-education camp? Would you be in favor of sanctioning specific people? I understand that the sanctioning part may have been confusing, but I'd like to ask now specifically: are you in favor of sanctioning specific people? If so, uh, why? And if not, why is that?
Um, could you please tell me how you sanction a group of people first?
You sanction specific officials in governments, let's say the Russian government. I want to sanction the guy in the Russian government by freezing his bank accounts in the United States and trying to prevent other nations from doing any business or trade with him, the officials.
Definitely, definitely. These people and these groups and these officials who are committing such bad, horrible, and terrible things should not be allowed to do anything in the United States. Not to mention access our bank account in the United States. I definitely agree with sanctioning them. Whether it be if it be upsetting China, okay, that's fine. Um, Secretary of State can deal with that. I don't deal with that, but they definitely need to be sanctioned. What they do is terrible and horrible and should never be done. Then again, they are a dictatorship, but we need to say, hey, you can't do this anymore. This is very wrong. Actually, by um going a little step further, we should be doing that on North Korean officials as well, because concentration camps. Which why do we still do those? There shouldn't be any concentration camps in the 21st century. I think everybody here agrees with that. So yeah.
But didn't
If
you? Sorry, continue. Oh yeah.
no, no, you're in the middle of asking a question. You finish yours.
All right. Well, didn't you say that you were initially against sanctioning, sanctioning in general? Can you like sort of specify? You said that you at first said that you were against sanctioning, and now
I'm
you're saying that
against
you're in favor of it.
sanctioning. I'm against sanctioning in entire countries. But if it was sanctioning an official country, that's fine. Not just the entire country. If it's an official in China, sanction it. If it's China itself, don't do it.
All
Okay,
right.
so if I may, what good is that going to do? How is that going to seriously make the PRC consider ending, say, the genocide of the Uyghur Muslims in Western China?
Hold on a second.
If we just sanction, I don't know, like the CEO of Huawei or something like that, or some random like PLA general, oh, is he gone?
Could you repeat that? My
Okay,
grandfather
so
was talking to me.
okay, so you say you don't want to really sanction like entire countries, uh, entire states, but you want to sanction individual people. So So what good is that going to do if you just, I don't know, sanction a Chinese CEO or a PLA general? What
Well, I hope that
how is that going to make them like reconsider their genocide in like Uyghurstan? I mean, like when the U.S. And Canada and Europe boycotted South Africa in the apartheid era, like they only got anything done after they completely shut off all trade with apartheid South Africa. It's not like, oh, we have this one South African politician, we're going to freeze all his bank accounts in like the US or Switzerland or whatever. No, it was mass like no like basically no trade at all. How that's how stuff gets done. So how do you think your approach will change anything for oppressed people in the PRC?
well, you can't really compare the apartheid South Africa to China. One, the apartheid South Africa is in Africa. I'm not being racist here. Has
I mean, yeah,
much less.
there is a big difference. Like in
There's a
China is
big
much
difference.
in China it's much worse. In South Africa it was just segregation, but in China it's genocide and concentration camps and slave labor used to make products that are exported around the world.
But
So yeah,
also,
there is a big difference. China is it's much more severe than apartheid.
um, not on that scale, but much more. Number one, China is much bigger than South Africa. Number two, China is much bigger in landmass, in GDP, in economy, and in people. You can't really compare South Africa in the 90s to China right now. Um, that's like comparing a mice to a house.
I know, but I guess you don't really understand the question. The question is, uh, I think the broader question that was asked before by, I believe, Senator Walsh was, do you support tariffs and sanctions against nations committing war crimes? And you said yes. But earlier you said, no, you don't want to actually sanction countries. You just want to sanction individual people. And I guess I'm trying to build on that by saying, what good is that actually going to do if you have a billion people like nation, like a global superpower? What is that going to do to pressure them into accepting international law?
I'm gonna have to.
I guess I'm the only one here.
Well, I'm here. We're all here. We're just muted. But yeah, I mean, Mr. Byring, are you still here? Please unmute yourself.
I'm still here, but I'm fixing a piece of technology.
All right, I yield my time then.
I mean, since I'm not in the in the excuse me in the Ways and Means Committee, Jamal Jones is the second person, the ranking member. Can you have any questions?
I don't, but I do have a motion to propose if all of our other senators are done asking questions.
Mr. Nixon, since you are the third person, the observing member of the Senate committee, do you have any questions to ask?
No, I do not.
Uh, Chair Ladybug, do you have any questions?
Concerning what now? The
Treasury nomination,
the
yes.
the Ways and Means
Since you're the
committee.
chair of the, yeah, you're the chair of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm just gonna.
Okay, so this is still to Senator Walsh, am I right? I
No,
mean, sorry,
I'm
not Walsh. I mean Peters. I got the names messed up.
correct.
Okay, so Mr. Nominee Peters, you are a Republican member of government. And I know in recent years there have been some more fiscally conservative Republicans calling for.
Hold on, guys. Hold on.
Wait, what?
I didn't say anything. It's background noise.
Okay. So a lot of more fiscally conservative Republicans are calling for the privatization of Social Security. So that would essentially cut off millions of Americans from like much needed financial support, and would yeah, like essentially like around 40% of Americans it's such an important institution we have. It's reduced the poverty rate of Americans 65 or older from 40% before it was instituted to 10% after it was instituted. So I'm just wondering, what is your opinion on, for example, a privatization of Social Security?
I'm not I'm not fiscally conservative. I'm not on that wing of the Republican Party. I'm on the more centrist, moderate side of the Republican Party. And Social Security needs to stay public. My colleagues on the conservative side, I'm sorry, what you're proposing is bad. You may hate me for that, but seriously, don't do. We're not doing it. I'm not doing it. It's bad. It's horrible. And it's just gonna hurt the seniors. Will never happen if I'm Treasury Secretary.
All right. And I guess my final question is, the President-elect Long has on his campaign made many what some would consider socialistic and far-left economic policies, such as a wealth cap for the super rich or a big wealth tax, etc. And that raises the possibility of the realization of a Medicare for all bill. Would you support such a policy if it were to if you were to, I guess, maybe be in charge of such a proposal as Treasury Secretary?
The Medicare for All proposal?
Yeah, yeah. What's your opinion on it?
I don't. Personally, Medicare for All is not my taste, but if the president does it, it's still it's still in my favorable books. Don't get me wrong,
I would
like
like
it.
to interject for a second. Medicare for all is more within HHS, not within the Treasury
Yeah,
Department.
that would
I guess so.
kind of out of my jurisdiction.
All right, so you
As
don't
the
have to answer
senator
it.
just pointed out.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass on that. Any more questions for me? No?
Okay. I motion that we end this hearing.
I'm in favor of this motion. What about the other senators?
Yeah, me too.
All right. Without
What
objection,
about,
the okay. Without objection, the motion passes.
This hearing is over. We'll be voting on the nominee soon. And Senate voting senators, please check that out. I'll be setting up the motion for that, the voting, the confirmation.
All right.
All right. Thank you all for joining us with this nomination. All right, Senator Ladybug, please give us the outro since you're the chairman of the Ways and Means. Senator Ladybug?
Oh, was I supposed to say something? Sorry, I'm doing something else.
Yeah. Since you're the chairman of the Ways and Means.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay, honestly, I don't know what to say in this specific instance.
All right. Well, thank you all. I'll say this. Well, thank you all for being here. The audience, thank you for being at this hearing. And I apologize for anyone who's listening to this on YouTube. I apologize for any background noise, any inconvenience you may have had in this nomination process. We will be voting on confirming, the Senate will be voting on confirming the Secretary of Treasury, whether or not to confirm the Secretary of Treasury in our voting place. It'll take place shortly. Thank you all for coming, and have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Would we be having another hearing with any other?
Later, I don't have time to do it.